Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And it's open season on the Marvels. It's open season on the MCU. Even Scott Mendelson is saying, hey, the MCU is fundamentally broken and there is no easy way to fix this.
No shit. I'm sorry, I'm just liking the kitty. He looks cute.
He's got tentacles in his mouth, though.
But you can't tell from that angle.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So we're gonna talk about this post-mortem, because it's not just post-mortem for the Marvels as a movie. It's also post-mortem for the MCU as a viable franchise that is, you know, a box office record smashing behemoth. And just, it's amazing how quickly Disney was able to kill the golden goose, you know, like
sorry. No, kitty, run.
Run, kitty, run. But yeah, it's just like, I mean, they've just completely choked the life out of the MCU. They put a chick in it. They made her gay. They made her lame. You know what I'm saying? When we talked about in the other video, when you're the butt of a joke in South Park, there's no coming back from that.
No, everybody's agreeing and thinks it's funny.
When Scott Mendelson, who used to stand pretty hard for Disney, is coming out, and when Grace Randolph, who used to stand pretty hard.
There are several journalists. I mean, you still have the ones like Connor the other day, but most of them are like, yeah, no, we can't defend this anymore, kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if any of them were really willfully turning a blind eye to the problems. I think they were like, well, you know, these nerds are overreacting, calling it the MCU, and and now everybody's looking at it like, no, it's broke, man.
It's pretty much became the MCU, like everybody, you know, was saying. Yep. And also, you know, I think it's funny because they keep saying about men, they're trying to go with that narrative again, and it's not working, because when you have the breakdown, it was mostly men who went to see it.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how things have changed. How things have changed. If you said these things 2 years ago, you were a bigot and a homophobe
and incel.
You were probably there ripping up comic books on January 6th, you know?
Yeah, that's what you were doing.
You know, burning Captain Marvel comics in effigy. Yeah, so we're gonna talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to shopclownfish.com, like 500 plus of you have, and pre-order a copy of the Shadowbinders Volume 3 hardcover coming next year. First new Shadowbinders content in many years, 10 years. And we still have a couple copies of 1 and 2 left if you want to back that. Thank you so much for the support. You have about a week.
Yes, thank you.
The media is trying very hard to defend this movie by saying it was misogyny and, you know, men don't like female leads, and, you know, women-led movies aren't given a fair shake. And as you pointed out.
Actually, it was Squid King who pointed it out. He said people were pointing it out all over the internet. Well, explain Barbie then.
Yeah, you know, explain Barbie. Explain Barbie. There are lots of female-led movies or female-centric movies that made bank. People just didn't like this movie. They didn't like well, okay, let me say this. It's not that people even didn't like this movie. They didn't go see this movie based on the other Marvel crap that they did not like.
Well, and then, you know, a lot of people who went to see the Captain Marvel the first time, allegedly, they got, you know, called names and stuff since, and they're like, I'm not going. Yeah,
so, yeah, exactly.
Women didn't go.
Women didn't go.
That's the issue. Like, a lot of women didn't go.
So, Scott Mendelson, and this is really interesting, he says, if the MCU is no longer special, there may be less interest in a new X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Blade movie. The very first paragraph. I love this. The Marvels didn't crash and burn at the box office this past weekend due to superhero fatigue, nor was it the lowest opening weekend in MCU history because fans were rebelling against the female-driven ensemble. The gender makeup in North America over opening weekend was 61% male and 39% female. Mm-hmm. Instead, the film limped to it was less than they said, a 46.1 million opening weekend due to a number of factors, including declining trust in the Marvel brand, all of which speak to an existential challenge for Marvel Studios. Make it special again.
I think it's that, but I also think you have these characters. They're trying so hard to make you watch Disney Plus, and people aren't going to do that. They have these characters, and people don't even know who they are. Like, who the hell is that? Plus, I don't think that Captain Marvel really was one that people wanted to go see in the first place. They just sandwiched it between two movies they did, and they felt they had to. And then I think COVID came along and taught people you do not have to see every movie in the theater.
Yeah, and they're bringing up the Disney Plus
Yes.
debacle that you have to watch all these shows, and now it's too convoluted. Look, if you're a normie, and it was very easy to follow the MCU compared to the comics, it was very, very easy. It was like, oh, we got Captain America, and now we got Tony Stark and the Hulk and all these characters, and they're all getting together. They're forming a team, and they're collecting these stones. And there's this guy named Thanos that wants to do something with the stones, and every movie is more about these stones and this Thanos guy, and it's all building to something where all these superheroes are going to take on this Thanos guy. That's easy to understand. But now you're like, okay, well, after Thanos, for whatever reason, all those superheroes that you loved, they're all either dying or getting replaced. And
they're all race bent and gender swap.
They're all race bent and gender swap. Oh yeah, we've got the multiverse now, and now we're bringing like all these galactic celestial beings into it, and time travel. And
this reminds me of webcomics. Okay, back when we did webcomics, the problem people had was when you start out and you're pretty easy to consume at first, you get more people. But then when you start to become so big that it's too much of a time investment.
Yes.
To consume all of it, people just look at it and think, I think that's interesting, but I'm not going to do it because it's too much. And I don't have time to read all that or to go through it. Or I only want a piece of the pie. I don't want the whole damn pie. And I think that's what's going on. And I think we saw this with lots of other franchises too. It gets too big, too convoluted. And people are just like, I don't want to take the time. And that's what people said. A lot of people said after the 10 years, they were out. Because they're like, I don't want to do another 10 years of this.
Yeah, it was like 20-some movies.
Right. It's too much of an ask. And then after COVID and everybody started just not going to the theater anymore, they're just like, oh, I skipped this one and that one. And it became really easy to not go. And the FOMO went away. And I think it reminds me of the webcomic thing. It gets too big and too much. And people just look at it and they're like overwhelmed. And they just like, nope, I'll find something that's easier.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think like if you had never read, and I don't want to single him out because I actually like the comic, but like Gunner Craig Court, right? Mm-hmm. Which has been around for like 15 years now.
Is it still going on?
It's still going on.
Oh, jeez, my gosh.
So there's like thousands of pages of this comic, and you're like, okay, so I got to start at page 1 to understand what's going on. And oh my God, like you're going to have your fans that have invested so much time in it that they're going to go regardless because they've already got the time sink, right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to know about, but for somebody new to come in, it's just like, where the hell do I start? Oh, Iron Man back in 2008. And then, oh my God. And now we got the multiverse. Now I got to go back and watch all these other kind of related Marvel movies too. And
the thing about a comic book, you can consume that pretty quickly and you could do it little by little and you don't feel like you're overwhelmed. But these movies, it's a bigger ask, I think. And then you feel like you have to keep watching all of them and it takes a lot of time and you can't just squeeze it in. And people just...
So the difference with comic book reading, collecting when I was a kid versus now. Big events like Secret Wars were special. They happened once every several years. Infinity Gauntlet, something like that. It happened once in a while, or they would do an event and it would just be a crossover of a couple of different titles. You didn't have to read everything. The way that Marvel is set up is they're making you read everything because it all ties into the next event, which is the same mistake they're making in the comic books now. Like sometimes you just want to read the X-Men books. You don't want to read everything else, but you can't because now they've made sure that
it's all, you have to read this one to understand what's going on in this one. And you have to read that issue to understand what's going on in this whole new series.
Because they're trying to sell you the whole line.
They're too busy. Remember brand synergy? That's all they talked about was synergy, which I don't even mention much anymore. Synergy. They over-synergized.
Yeah,
shows
they did.
Over synergy.
And it doesn't, shows over synergy. It doesn't help. It doesn't help that, just Captain Marvel herself, this character, they keep forcing people to
trying to force people
like Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel. And I know what the thought process is because this is Disney. So they're going to be looking at this like, okay, well, we call it the Marvel Universe. And this is why we're going to call it the Marvel. Because we're going to do some time travel shit. And we're going to have them go back to the beginning of the multiple time streams. And it's going to be called the Marvel Universe because she was at the very beginning. And in the beginning, there was Carol. And Carol was the word, and her name was Marvel.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Carol was the worst.
Well, okay. Yeah. And so I think that's part of why they keep pushing her so hard is I think in their faulty logic is we're going to make it the Marvel Universe
hence
because
the MCU.
Yes. And it's just not working. It's not working. But to have somebody like Scott Mendelson come out and say it's not working, talking about the other failures, Quantumania, Eternals,
Right.
Thor,
Yeah.
I forgot existed. But meanwhile, Barbie did well.
Barbie
Five
did
Nights
great.
at Freddy's did well. Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Taylor Swift dominated. Now, I mean, and the thing is, there's no excuse for the Marvels to do so bad because they don't have competition. I mean, these are their competition. Five Nights at Freddy's and the Eras Torch. I don't even know if it's still in all the theaters, but you don't have a lot of competition for a tentpole franchise. And you still got your asses kicked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sad. And he went to China and no one cared.
She went to China and nobody cared. So now he goes through and he says, look, there have been declining returns since Endgame because everything was building to that, right? But he said, now it's time to be concerned. The Marvels, a sequel to a film that cracked 1.1 billion, will likely get outgrossed in North America by The Flash, an out-and-out bomb for Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
God-awful movie, by the way.
But did Captain Marvel did ever get the money they said they claim it did? I don't believe it ever did. I really don't. I believe Disney cheated the hell out of it, and I've said so for a while.
Yeah.
I think people did go because they wanted to, they felt like they had to, but I think we also know Disney was busting people in. And they were like doing these special deals to get you free tickets here, free tickets there, busting you in. And then everybody was putting out these pictures of theaters that were like they couldn't get a ticket because it was sold out, but there was like nobody in the theater. You know, I don't think it was necessarily, accurate to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting its butt kicked by The Flash.
I mean, that's bad.
And that movie was
bad.
so
I'm sorry
bad.
if you like it, but that was a bad movie.
We finally got around to watching it, and it was so much worse. It was so much worse.
That was a waste of a couple hours.
2.5 hours of Ezra Miller.
Is that how long it was?
Yeah, something like that. It was like Ezra Miller talking to himself for like 2.5 hours. I don't remember how long it was,
but I was just like, this movie sucks.
So, Mendelson, he's going on about the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. And now this is what's interesting, right? Okay. If the mere idea of films taking place in the MCU is no longer an event, will audiences even care about Blade or the fourth attempt to turn the Fantastic Four into a franchise?
My thing in thinking here about the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, more so than Blade, is that they have recently, like in the last 10, 15 years, been messing with these. And then people have seen X-Men already. They've already seen Fantastic Four a couple different times. You know what I'm saying? Blade, it was in the 90s, so it's been a long time. I can see that one. But the other two, they have just in the recent past messed with them again. And people are kind of like, do we care? No. Do we trust Disney to do it right? No.
Disney is the last company I trust to do right by these franchises. Because they said the idea of it, this is a distribution executive talking to The Wrap. He said the idea of a new X-Men movie or a more source faithful Fantastic Four film certainly has at least some must-see appeal. However, they have to be faithful to the source material. The one thing we have not seen ever on the big screen is a comic book faithful adaptation of the X-Men. And I do not want Disney to get a hold of it and Disney to do it, because if Disney does it, it's going to be the current year comic book iteration of the X-Men where they're all glamming it up and going
to the gala.
Going to the gala. Yeah, it's going to be the freaking blingiest, gayest thing ever, when really all people want are a good representation of 80s, 90s X-Men comics. And if you did that on the big screen, that would bring people in. You keep the costumes from the 90s cartoons, something, get the music in there. You don't, race bend or gender bend the characters, and you're pretty faithful to the material. Hell, set it in the 1990s, set it in the 1980s. It would do really well, but they won't do that. They're too stupid. They're going to be like, no, we want our post-Disney acquisition X-Men to be the X-Men on the big screen, led by Kamala Khan.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because she's a mutant now. And same with Fantastic Four. Everything I'm hearing is that Sue Storm is going to be taking center stage, which is okay. I mean, Sue Storm... I
wouldn't recommend doubling down the MCU.
No. And the Fantastic Four works best when it's a family. You get Brad Bird to direct it because he did The Incredibles, which is basically the best Fantastic Four movie that's ever been made. And you'd be fine. But again, they're going to get in their own way, and they're going to mess it up. And people aren't going to want to see it if they mess it up. And at this point, even if they do a good job, people might not turn out anyway because they're just like, oh, it's another Marvel movie. I don't care.
Yeah, I think they don't care.
We've had, how many X-Men reboots have we had? I don't care.
And
that's
Disney's
just
doing it now. Well, they already ruined all this other stuff, so who cares?
Yeah, who cares? And that's just basically it. That's
Or
basically
just blame it on men.
that's what Scott Mendelson says. He said you can't blame it on men. 61% male audience for the Marvels, and just nobody cares anymore. It's over. You know, I think Marvel is over, and I think everybody is starting to realize that. Whether or not Disney has gotten that memo yet is a whole nother issue. I'm sure. Look at the box office receipts; they're getting the memo. We're gonna wrap it up.
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.